Hi, this is Dory, and I am here to share with you Reflections of the Spirit, our weekly reflection based on the Spirit talks from the last Saturday of the month. Have you ever known someone whose faith was easier to experience than it was to explain? Maybe they didn't talk about their beliefs all the time. Maybe they never tried to convince you to see the world how they saw it. Oftentimes, they're not the loudest person in the room or the person with the most polished words. But when you're around them, you feel something. You feel welcomed, listened to, safe to be honest. You feel as though your life matters. There are people whose spirituality seems to live in the way they treat other people. Their beliefs become visible through patience, compassion, humility, forgiveness, generosity, and love. I have been thinking about people like that since our most recent Spirit Talk. During our last Spirit Talk, we explored the idea of radiating your inner light. We looked at several spiritual traditions. Today, I want to stay with one of those paths a little bit longer, and I want to take a deeper look at Christian mysticism. Not because everyone listening needs to become a Christian mystic, not because I'm here to tell you what you should believe, and not because one tradition has to erase or replace another. The purpose of Reflections of the Spirit is to listen carefully to the wisdom carried by many different paths. We are not flattening them into one religion, and we are not pretending they all say the same thing because they don't. We are simply asking, what might this path help us notice about ourselves? So today, I'm not asking you to adopt Christian mysticism. I'm inviting you to consider what it offers. A way of moving from belief as an idea into love as a lived experience. How does something go from being something you've heard to something you believe to something you can live? How do we go from belief to embodiment? Christian mysticism is a broad contemplative stream within Christianity. It has appeared in many different cultures, denominations, communities, and centuries. So there is no single Christian mystical voice. But many Christian mystics share a desire for a direct and transformative relationship with God through practices such as silence, prayer, meditation, contemplation, humility, service, and love. They don't all only ask, what do I believe about God? They also ask, what is my relationship with the divine changing within me? That's a different question. We can know a great deal without allowing what we know to transform us. We can study kindness and we can still speak cruelly. We can understand forgiveness and still organize our lives around resentment. We can believe every person has sacred worth and still treat some people as though they don't matter or they matter less than others. Information can fill the mind without transforming the heart. Christian mysticism invites people to move beyond information alone and into lived relationship. It asks whether love is becoming more visible in us, whether compassion is changing the way we respond, whether humility is making us more teachable, whether our spirituality is helping us become more present, more honest, more capable of seeing the humanity in people whose lives look different from our own. And that is where this becomes relevant no matter what path we follow. Most spiritual traditions ask, in one way or another, whether our inner life is becoming visible through the way we live, through the way we express ourselves, through the way we connect with others, through the way we show others that they matter, and through the way we demonstrate and carry ourselves. One reason silence has played such an important role in contemplative Christianity is that silence reveals what noise can hide. Do you ever just stop for a moment and just sit in the silence? When the noise stops, we begin to notice the thoughts that are racing through our minds. We notice our need to be right. We notice the old hurt we keep replaying. We notice how quickly we judge. We notice how exhausted we are. We notice the distance between the person we say we want to be and the way we sometimes respond when we feel pressured, afraid, unseen, or unheard. Silence is not always peaceful at first. Sometimes silence is where we meet everything we have been avoiding. But silence can also create space, space to breathe, space to listen, space to pray, space to connect with consciousness, space to remember that not every thought deserves our focus. Not every thought needs to control our actions. Space to recognize that our deepest identity may be larger than our fear, our mistakes, our productivity, or the opinions other people have formed about us. Sometimes we avoid silence because we believe it will reveal everything that is wrong with us. But contemplative spirituality does not have to be an exercise in self-punishment. It can be a way of becoming honest while remaining held in love. There's a difference between conviction and condemnation. Conviction says, this part of your life needs some attention. Condemnation says, you're beyond love. Conviction invites growth. Condemnation convinces us to hide. A healthy spiritual life should not require us to hate ourselves before we are allowed to grow. Instead, it invites us to look honestly at our lives while remembering that our value is not erased by our imperfections. Sometimes people hear the phrase radiate your inner light and imagine they are supposed to feel positive all the time. From someone who often works at radiating my inner light, I can tell you firsthand, I do not feel positive all the time. Sometimes that idea to feel positive all the time means that we think shining means smiling through the pain. We can think being spiritual means never becoming angry, never being tired or disappointed or afraid. We can think light requires pretending that darkness does not exist. But Christian spirituality does not begin with pretending. The Christian story contains grief, injustice, betrayal, sacrifice, doubt, suffering, fear, death, and hope. Jesus was not compassionate because he ignored suffering. He was compassionate because he entered into it. He understood it. He noticed people others overlooked. He ate with people others judged. He touched people others avoided. He listened to people whose voices were often dismissed. He challenged attitudes and systems that treated certain human beings as though they were not worthy. That kind of light is not shallow positivity. It is courageous presence. It is the willingness to remain compassionate in a world that repeatedly gives us reasons to become hardened. Sometimes our brightest light is not joy. Sometimes it is kindness while we are hurting. Sometimes it is patience while we are tired. Sometimes it is hope while we're uncertain. Sometimes it is simply refusing to pass our pain forward. During Spirit Talks, I asked what might change if we approached people with more compassion than judgment. I have continued thinking about that question myself because compassion is often misunderstood. Compassion does not mean approving of everything. It does not mean abandoning discernment. It does not mean remaining in harmful situations. It does not mean allowing people unlimited access to us and having no boundaries. Compassion and boundaries can coexist. Love and accountability can coexist. Forgiveness and wisdom can coexist. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is say no. Sometimes it is stepping away. Sometimes it is telling the truth. Sometimes it is refusing to participate in patterns that continue to cause harm. But even when we need boundaries, we can try not to let another person's behavior turn us into something we do not want to become. That may be one expression of inner light, maintaining our humanity even when we are disappointed by someone else's. Compassion also becomes difficult when we convince ourselves that we fully understand another person. We see one reaction and believe we know their character. We hear one opinion and believe we know the whole story. We encounter someone on a difficult day and assume that version of them is the complete person. But every person is carrying a history that we can't see. That does not excuse harmful behavior. Understanding is not the same as excusing, but understanding can soften the certainty with which we condemn. We may not know what happened before they entered the room. We may not know what loss they recently experienced. We may not know how frightened, exhausted, ashamed, or overwhelmed they are. Again, we are not being asked to accept mistreatment. We are being invited to remember that people are usually more complicated than the brief moment in which we encounter them. Christian mysticism often returns to the idea of seeing the divine image in every person. That is beautiful language. It's also very challenging language. It's easy to say that every person carries sacred worth. It's harder to live that belief when that person irritates us, disagrees with us, holds beliefs that are different from ours, made choices we don't understand, or even hurt us. The real test of a belief in human dignity is not how we treat the people who make it easy. It is how we speak about people when we believe that they are wrong. Can we challenge ideas without stripping people of their humanity? Can we stand firmly in our values without becoming contemptuous? Can we recognize another person's dignity without pretending every action is acceptable? These questions matter deeply in the world we are living in. We are surrounded by messages encouraging us to divide people into categories: good people, bad people, enlightened people, ignorant people, worthy people, unworthy people, us and them. But human beings rarely fit neatly into those categories. Every person is capable of kindness and of harm, of courage and of fear, of generosity and of selfishness, of wisdom and of poor judgment. We are all unfinished. That does not erase responsibility. It simply creates room for humility. Humility is another important part of Christian mysticism, and it is often misunderstood. Humility is not believing we are worthless. It's not making ourselves smaller so that other people feel more comfortable. It's not refusing to recognize our own gifts. Humility is seeing ourselves honestly. We have strengths. We have limitations. We have wisdom. We have blind spots. We have something meaningful to offer, and we still need other people. Humility allows us to shine without believing we are the only source of light in the room. That connects beautifully with the candle image from Spirit Talks. One candle does not lose its light when another candle is lit. Light multiplies. Your gifts do not diminish mine. My success does not erase your potential. Someone else's beauty does not make you less beautiful. Someone else's wisdom does not make you foolish. Someone else's purpose does not mean you have none. Of course, that is much easier to say than to remember while we're scrolling through social media, right? We are constantly shown other people's accomplishments, their homes, their families, their bodies, their businesses, relationships, and milestones. Oftentimes, we're also shown their foolishness, their cruelty, and their lack of good judgment, I guess you could say. And we compare their visible moments with our own private struggles. We see their results, but we don't see the process. We see their celebration or their failure, but we do not see their struggles or their grief, their confidence, but not the years of doubt behind it. Then we begin to believe that our own light is inadequate. Humility allows us to appreciate another person's light without making it evidence against our own. It allows us to say, that is beautiful, without immediately asking the question, why am I not there yet? It allows us to learn from others without trying to become them. Christian spirituality also places tremendous emphasis on service. Service can be one of the clearest ways inner light becomes outward action. But service needs care. Many compassionate people have been taught that serving others means disappearing. They give until they are depleted. They say yes when they need to say no. They confuse love with constant ability. They believe that caring for themselves is selfish. Then exhaustion slowly turns to resentment. Healthy service does not require us to destroy ourselves. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowds. He rested. He prayed. He stepped away, even for 40 days. He did not respond to every demand that was placed upon him. That matters. That is important. We cannot sustainably radiate love if we never allow ourselves to receive any care. A lamp needs fuel. A phone needs to be charged. A body needs to rest. A heart needs places where it does not have to perform. Sometimes radiating your inner light does mean serving. Sometimes it means resting so that your light is not extinguished by constant use and depletion. Sometimes it means letting another person help you. That was a very hard lesson for me. And it is such an important one. It is okay to ask for help, and it is okay to give help. Allowing someone to care for us requires us to be vulnerable. It requires admitting that we are human, that we have needs too, and that we can't do everything alone. We do not only radiate light by giving. Sometimes we honor the light in others by allowing them to give to us. I also want to spend a moment with forgiveness because it is one of the most frequently discussed and misunderstood parts of the Christian teaching. Forgiveness does not mean pretending something didn't hurt. It does not mean forgetting about it. It does not automatically restore trust. It does not require reconciliation in every situation. It doesn't mean returning to unsafe relationships. Forgiveness can also be a very long process. Sometimes we decide to forgive and then discover that same pain the next day. We peel back one layer of the onion just to discover the next, right? That doesn't mean we failed. It means healing is rarely one layer. Forgiveness may begin as the decision that we no longer want the injury, the pain we're feeling to control the direction of our lives. It might mean releasing the fantasy that the past can be changed. It might mean grieving what we did not receive. It might mean refusing to keep feeding the resentment while hoping the other person somehow feels the consequences. And sometimes forgiveness includes forgiving ourselves. Many of us carry old versions of ourselves like evidence in a trial that never ends. We replay what we should have known, what we should have done, what we should have said. We judge our past selves using wisdom we only gained because of what happened. But growth requires room. We can take responsibility without sentencing ourselves to lifelong shame. We can acknowledge harm, make amends when possible. We can learn, we can change, and we can continue on. Christian mysticism often emphasizes transformation, not instant perfection. Transformation is gradual. It's continued returning, a willingness to notice when we have moved away from love and begin again. You reacted poorly? Take a breath and begin again. You became judgmental? Notice it and begin again. You allowed fear to speak for you? Feel the fear and begin again. You hid your gifts because you were afraid? Take one small step and start again. The path is not lost simply because we wandered. Light is not destroyed simply because we forgot how to see it. When we cover our heads or bury them in the sand, we can uncover them or take our head out of the sand. Maybe that is why this month's theme matters. Radiating your your inner light is not a demand that you become impressive. It is an invitation to become intentional. What quality do you want people to experience from you? What do you want to bring into the spaces you enter into? How do you want people to feel after spending time with you? Do you want them to feel judged or rushed or invisible? Or do you want them to feel seen, respected, encouraged, and safe enough to be honest? We can't control the ways people interpret us, but we can become more intentional about what we carry with us. Maybe your light this week is patience, maybe courage or honesty. Maybe it's saying, I'm sorry. Maybe it's creating a boundary or listening without immediately giving advice. Maybe it's checking on someone who has been quiet. Maybe it's allowing yourself to rest without earning it first. These things might seem small, but light often arrives in small forms. A candle, a porch light, a phone call, a meal. You ever have those moments when you're laying in a room and the room is dark and you notice the simplest little light? Like maybe you look up and you notice the little tiny red light on the smoke detector. Has that ever happened? And it just astonishes you at how bright that light is. It's just the teeny tiniest little light, and we only notice it in the darkness. That's all it has to be. A sincere question followed by enough silence to actually hear the answer. We don't always know when we become part of someone else's healing. We may never know that our kindness arrived on the day someone was struggling to keep going. We may never know that our encouragement helped them take one more step. We may never know that being welcomed into one room changed how they saw themselves. Not all light is dramatic. Much of it is ordinary, consistent, quiet, and deeply needed. This week, I want to invite you into a very simple contemplative practice. Set aside 5 quiet minutes. You don't need special music, candles, or perfect conditions. You just need a few minutes when you are unlikely to be interrupted. Sit comfortably, take one slow breath in, and let it out. Then ask yourself, what is shaping the way I am showing up right now? Then listen to the answer. What comes to you? Is it love, fear, exhaustion, depletion, resentment, courage, hope, pressure, compassion, joy, humility? Do not rush to fix on the answer. Just notice it. Then ask, what quality would I like to practice today? Choose one quality, not 10, just one. Maybe today is about patience or compassion, perhaps humility or courage. Maybe it's honesty. Maybe it's rest. Then choose one small action that gives that quality somewhere to live. If it's patience, and you are regularly encountering someone who seems to bring forth your impatience, when you're feeling that impatience, take a deep breath, count to 10, and then kindly communicate with that person. Or slow the car down a little bit and let that car trying to merge in front of you come on in. Choose one small action that gives that quality someplace to live. If you choose compassion, perhaps you'll listen to someone without interrupting. With humility, maybe you take that moment and admit you were wrong. If you choose courage, maybe you can have that conversation you've been avoiding. If you choose rest, which is sometimes my favorite one because that can be hard for me too, in those moments, I try to stop treating exhaustion as proof that I'm doing enough. The practice is not about becoming perfect by the end of the week. It's about becoming more aware of what we are carrying and more intentional about what we share. Let's take a couple moments to look at some reflections for the week. What do people experience when they encounter me? Not what do I hope they experience, not what do I intend them to experience. What might they actually experience? Do they experience patience, warmth, respect, presence, or have stress, exhaustion, fear, frustration been speaking louder than my values lately? Don't use the question to attack yourself. Use it to become curious. Then ask, what quality associated with the life and teachings of Jesus would I like to practice more intentionally this week? Whether or not you're a believer in Jesus, Jesus still taught and demonstrated many things. Maybe the quality associated with his life and teachings might be compassion or forgiveness, humility or service, perhaps patience or courage. Choose one, then identify one specific way to practice it. At the end of the week, ask yourself what changed, not whether you were perfect, whether you became more aware, whether you made one choice that allowed your light to move more freely. Thank you for spending this time reflecting with me. Next week, we will continue our August journey by exploring what Wicca, modern pagan traditions, and Gaia-centered spirituality might teach us about nature, authenticity, belonging, and honoring the season we are actually living in. As you move through this week, remember that inner light is not simply something we possess, it is something we practice. It becomes visible through the choices we make, the way we treat people, and the love we are willing to carry into the world. May your journey continue with more passion, more footwork, and more energy. more passion to live from what matters most, more footwork to turn intention into meaningful action, and more energy to care for yourself so you can continue showing up with love. And as always, peace, love, and pixie dust.